So now that we're done with the booster pump PM and oil change, we're going to move on to the roughing pump. So what do we have to do to prepare the pump for oil change in PM?
All right, well again, it's best if we can get to the pump while the oil is still warm. And I recommend removing the oil fill plug here. It's a 12 millimeter plug, so you want to make sure you got a 12 millimeter Allen wrench prior to starting the oil change. You want to remove the fill plug first. This prevents the pump from the oil from coming out in globs. So we want to use an oil drain pan. This, unfortunately, the one for the demonstration here is a little small. The pump holds between 2 and 3 gallons of oil, so you want to have a drain pan that can handle 2 or 3 gallons of oil. Then simply remove the oil drain plug right here and let the oil drain out. Now, one of the things to get more oil out, Mike, is once the pump drains out and it stops draining, you can put the plug back in and you can start the SV200 up for a couple seconds. All the oil that is in the cooling lines and in the vacuum generator will get pushed out into the oil box, and we'll get more oil out that way. The more oil we get out, the better. I would put the plug back in just finger tight, and we want to go back and change the oil filter, which is on this side of the pump. It's a automotive type oil filter. You change that filter the same way you would change the filter on your car. And you want to make sure you apply a little bit of oil to the surface of the gasket. Make sure the surfaces are clean of the new filter, and reinstall the filter.
So you should change the filter with every oil change?
Every oil change. It's probably more important to change the oil filter than it is the oil itself. It's that critical to the maintenance of the pump. We're saying if the oil is drained, we want to refill the pump with oil. Simply fill the oil through this port. You want to take the oil level up to the top of the oil sight glass and stop. All right, right now I'm going to check the exhaust filters and make sure that they're seated and installed correctly and are in good shape. The way I'm going to test it is I'm not going to have the exhaust line connected to the exhaust. I'm going to open the gas ballast, and you'll hear the change of tone when I do this. Okay, the gas ballast is open. If there was a problem with the exhaust filters at this point, we'd be seeing smoke coming out of the exhaust. Right now it's nice and clear, no mist, no smoke. Apparently everything is seated properly.
So now that we've changed the oil and done a little PM on the roughing pump, what additional items do we have to look at?
Okay, well, we need to address the exhaust filters, Mike. The exhaust filters, according to the book, need to be changed once a year. But you know as well as I do that the exhaust filters can vary in their lifespans depending on oil condition. The material coming into the pump can affect process material coming into the pump can shorten the lives. The cleaner the oil is, basically, the longer the lifespan of the exhaust filters will be. So some of the examples of what can happen with clogged exhaust filters is, first, the pump can run hotter than normal. That could be an indication that the exhaust filter is clogged. One of the main indicators is you'll start to see more oil flow into the exhaust line coming out of the pump and into your trap. And you'll notice that the oil level in the oil sight glass will drop down.
So if you start to get oil migrating from the pump into the exhaust line,
that's a very strong indicator that
the filters are probably going to need to be replaced. Okay, now that we've removed the exhaust flange, we're going to take a look at replacing one of the exhaust filters.
Yeah, for the purposes of the video, I think that's all we need to show. All we're simply going to do is remove the brass nut on the bottom right-hand exhaust filter. And there's a washer, a spring, and another washer. We'll take those off, then we'll just pull the exhaust filter out.
Okay.
So if you'd like, have at it.
Okay. So I'll get my wrench here.
That's a 10 millimeter deep well.
And I'll just loosen the bolt and go all the way.
Yep.
Okay, so now it's loose. And we can pull the whole sleeve out. You
Correct.
can see it's pretty clean.
Yeah, this is basically a brand new pump.
So there's a little bit of spring hardware.
Yep. You always want to make sure that you do not lose the fender washers. If you would lose one, please don't use a standard washer with a smaller washer. I found with the smaller washers they leak. In other words, you'll see smoke, which is oil mist, get by the filter. So you want to make sure you keep track of these fender washers. If not, replace it with a new fender washer.
So if you install a new filter and you still get oil in the line the next couple weeks, maybe they forgot to replace the washer or it's the wrong side.
You don't want the gasket to become unglued to this exhaust filter.
So if the rod pushed it off.
Right. If the rod does push it off, you're going to want to use a what we call Black Max Loctite. It's basically similar to super glue to glue it back on. This gasket must be glued in place for it to work effectively.
Otherwise, it short circuits the filter.
Correct, and you get the smoke outside the pump.
Okay.
So, at this point, we're just going to reinstall this exhaust filter, pretending that it's a brand new filter. And once this is installed, Mike, all 4 filters should be at the same level. In other words, they should be pushed in the same. If you see one sticking out further than the other 3, or 2 sticking out further than the other 3, then that's telling you that the filter is not seated properly. You want to start out with the large flat washer,
okay,
the spring, the other large flat washer, and your brass nut. Now it's important to get the right torquage on this. There's not an actual torque setting on this because we're pushing against the spring, Mike. When you're tightening it up, your wrench will spin and all of a sudden it will stop spinning freely. At that point, just give it about an eighth of a turn, snug it up.
So now that we've changed out the exhaust filters, is there anything else we want to look at while the flange is open?
Yeah, Mike, I think it's a good time to explain the purpose of the float. And first off, the float is the plastic piece in the right-hand corner, approximately where my finger is pointing to. It's a clear to yellowish colored float device, approximately 2 inches long. What the float does is part of the oil recirculation unit. What happens is, as the pump is running, you're at high pressure, Mike, you have a lot of mist built up in the pump. That mist comes out and it's actually condensed by the exhaust filters. And those tiny little droplets that form the mist turn into large droplets as they're condensed. And they drop off of these tabs on the exhaust filters and they run down into the reservoir where the float is. Once the oil level rises to a certain point to where the float opens, the oil is being pulled back into the vacuum generator and recirculated. For instance, if the float would become damaged for whatever reason, it won't return the oil back to the pump. In that case, you'll see the oil level dropping in your oil sight glass, and you don't have no leaks on the outside of the pump. You're wondering what could be the problem.
So where's the oil going?
Where is the oil going? Well, I have seen it. It's very rare, but the oil, because the float is not open, and the oil is building up inside this chamber, and at that point, you've got to inspect the float.
So next we're going to talk about the gas ballasting feature of the roughing pump. So what is the gas ballast and what does it do? Okay, well the gas ballast is located on the right-hand corner of the pump as we're looking at it. It's a simple valve that allows air to enter the pump when open. The valve itself, when the screw is turned to the horizontal, is in the closed position. When the screw is turned into the vertical, it's a quarter turn, then the gas ballast is now open. What the gas ballast does, it's a measured air leak into the pump. The air leak is introduced right near the exhaust phase inside the pump cylinder. Okay. What that does is it raises the temperature of the pump. So your condensable gases will condense or stay as a gas and pass out of the pump. It does have another function too. Other than just leaving the gas, raising the temperature of the pump, it does open the exhaust valves during every phase. By the exhaust valves opening on every phase, the condensation on the inside of the valves will not happen. Now, if it's a small amount of water in the oil will turn a creamy color, light creamy.
It's possible to get that oil out by running the gas bellows. Now it may take 2 or 3 hours. Now if it's beyond that, it's you've had a process upset where you've got a lot of water mixed with the oil. I'd recommend changing the oil and the oil filter at that point.
Okay. So before we turn on the pumps, is there anything else you want to do?
Well, Mike, you want to make sure that the whole cooling circuit is clean and free so the air flows evenly around the pump. We've already checked this side of the air circuit. Now we want to make sure that the fan and the fan cover is clean on this end. This ensures that the motor is clean. Also, you want to clean in the fins too.
Okay.
And also, there's 4 loops of copper tubing that go around the turbine. The copper tubing is your oil flow. It's being cooled by the turbine, the air blowing off the turbine. We want to make sure that this area is clean and free of debris. We can use compressed air. If need be, we could remove this cover to get inside there and clean a little better, but typically you can blow it out with compressed air and you're set to go.